everywhere, and the traffic in Lagos has been out of this world. It's almost like there's just a special plan for Lagosians alone, just to stress people out. But then just take time out to visit family, friends, and loved ones. Check on them, talk about how to progress, very important, and just do well for yourself. My name is Omobola Sandra. We will be looking through the trending stories on the front pages of our dailies, and to do analysis, put some spotlight on the stories, flesh things out, do some analysis to the stories. We'll be having Fuhad Sahid joining in via the phone line. Okay, all right. So it's going to be an interesting one. I have the Guardian, the Nation. Okay, the Punch, the Guardian, Nigerian Tribune, and New Telegraph. Okay, so it's going to be an interesting one. Stay with us. We'll do this up until 8:30, and then by 8:40 we'll come back for Mainland Focus, where you get to be a part of the conversation. We'll pick one or two trending stories, put some spotlight on it, open up the phone line or the chat line for you to share your thoughts and contributions as regards the focus for the morning. Okay, so let's carry on whilst we await Fuhad joining in via the phone line. I'll start with the Guardian newspaper, and the major headline there: study routes to Japa. Over $4 billion spent on overseas education in 8 years amid poor funding, neglect of public schools. Before we move on, good morning, Fuad.
Yeah, good morning, Sandra. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you very much. Good morning.
And happy birthday to you.
Oh,
Happy birthday, happy wonderful birthday to you. I wish you all the best. I wish you the best in the years ahead. And I'm hoping that the cake is already in the office.
the cake is not yet.
Don't you know
It's on its way.
So you want to tell your listeners, Sandra's birthday today. Everybody listening to us.
Sandra's birthday today. Thank you very much, Fuad. I
So happy
really
birthday to
appreciate
you.
it. Thank you. Thank you so
God
much.
bless you.
Amen.
Mm.
Thank you. All right. So we have trending stories, and the big story on the front page of the Guardian is study route to Japa. Fuad, before we go into the intricacies of the report, yesterday
Yeah.
I was having a conversation. Oh, I joined a conversation online as regards
Mm.
people are actually going to Sudan, to study, and the conversation went up. I'm like, wow, before people started doing research on schools in Sudan, why people would choose a school in Sudan over a
Sudan.
school in Nigeria. Does it have to do with Japa, anything just to get out of this country, or do they have better facilities over there or whatnot? But then now it's a big story on the front page of the Guardian, where we have the report saying over $4 billion spent on overseas education in 8 years amid poor funding and neglect of public schools. Imagine, for one, remember last year, 8 months of no work in schools where the students were at home. What would be your general analysis, or what would be your analysis of our education system generally, and relating it also as well to the Japa syndrome, where most people are using education like school to as a study route, let me put it that way, as a means to Japa.
Well, again, there are two questions
Mm,
that you've raised this morning. The first is to look at the concerns of our schools
mm,
and the quality of education that we get from these schools, from our institutions.
mm,
That's one question. The other one is the reason for this Japa syndrome, which is purely economic. I have to say it's about people looking for greener pasture.
mm-hmm,
If I were to look at people going to Sudan, I think if you profile most of the students,
mm,
they are of northern extraction. Most of them are majorly of northern extraction.
yeah.
And from the analysis of the schools and the courses they go there in Sudan to study, I think it's more of Arabic, Islamic studies related kind of courses that you find a lot of these people going out there to go and study. I don't think it's more of anything sciences or humanities or even what we call the management courses. More of courses related to Arabic and Islamic studies,
Mm,
which a lot of the universities in Sudan are some quality to offer.
mm,
But when it comes to the quality of our schools, I have to say, look, basically just going to any of our public universities, Sandra,
mm,
you don't need to even spend too much time for you to discover that, look, there's still a lot that is lacking. Go to the libraries of our public universities, go to the lecture halls, go to the staff rooms of the lecturers, even the general environment. You know that a lot is wrong with our public institutions, our public universities. Even go to the hostels, go to the conditions of students in the hostels and all of that. Of course, the argument would be that what exactly are our students paying for them to demand that kind of quality they see overseas. But the reality is that we once had very good universities, Obafemi Awolowo University, University of Ibadan, University of Lagos. There was, Ilorin and all of these very good schools with very solid infrastructure. Some of them with infrastructure that in recent times we have not really been able to replicate. Go to Ife, for example, look at the buildings, the architecture, and all of that. You know that at that time, the leaders were intentional about university education for Nigeria. We don't find that anymore, and we need to really, really fix. That's where we're going to produce the leaders of tomorrow. If we're going to be talking about technological advancement and all of those kinds of advancements, we need to fix our universities and make them up to standard. Therefore, people that are using the education route to Japa standard, that's the easiest route. Because, of course, if you're able to pay, get an admission into a foreign university, you're able to pay the tuition fee, it automatically gives you the visa to travel out. And added to that is that you're able to also bring your dependents if you are married, and all of that. So it's an open opportunity, open window for Nigerians who have been, dreaming of leaving the country, hoping to get a better life out there. But there's a bit of a challenge. There's a bit of a challenge with the Japa syndrome we have now. I always analyze it that, look, for these countries that Nigerians go to, they have their own challenges, and they deliberately open their doors for people to come in at this time. The UK, for example, has a lot of Brexit issues that they're trying to solve economically. So for them, for example, their universities are able to make money from Nigerians who come there because they don't pay tuition fees. Their landlords who have homes that have been empty for some time now have people renting them, so because you have to pay for rent.
So
apart from that, it's also cheap labor.
Economy.
Yeah, it's a win-win for them, really.
Wow.
A win-win for them, but some uncertain future awaits a lot of Nigerians that are Japan now. But what they will tell you is that, look, it's better to go into that society hoping to get things better in the future by remaining in the country that the leaders don't seem committed to the future of our youth. So if you look at it all around, it's win-win for this country. You pay tuition fee, you pay rent, it's also cheap labor. Because when you work, basically you're also going to pay tax. You are not on any social facility there. The government is not paying you anything. So, at the twilight of the Brexit crisis, the UK knew what they wanted to do by opening their borders and doors now for people to come in. And if you see Nigerians that are traveling standard, and you look at the amount they commit into this journey, you know that we need to rethink ourselves as a nation. For you to travel to the UK now with your family standard, on the guise of education, you must have at least minimum of like 10-15 million naira. Before you pay for your tuition fee, pay for flights, pay for accommodation, pay for all of these things and all of that. So, again, it's just for us to sit back as a people, look at ourselves again, look at the country and do whatever it takes to fix it.
Looking at, budget allocation to education, we also have a report here as regards the fact that Nigeria's education crisis seems to be, there's an education crisis in Nigeria, from what Fuad has said as well. But then looking at this, in Ghana, for example, we have here that 23.81% of their budget goes to education, while South Africa 16.7% goes to education, while in Nigeria a mighty 5.4% goes to education. Very interesting to put. There's a lot of statistics here looking at Nigerians. It's also here that there are Nigerian students even in Ghana, just our neighboring country here. So
what about Benin Republic? They're talking about Ghana. Ghana is far now.
There's a Nigerian university in Benin Republic. Yes, that's true. All right. So, looking deeper into it, there's a whole lot that needs to be said. It says here that despite the president's promise to improve education funding and allocation to the sector, Nigerian students still continue to troop abroad and in droves in pursuit of foreign education. There's a lot, just as Fahad said. But then more details on pages 4 and 5. That's the major story on the Guardian newspaper. Study route to Japa. Over $4 billion spent on overseas education amid poor funding and neglect of public schools. Now, still on the front page of the Guardian, we have here Tinubu promises to fight corruption, protect judges from vices. So, of course, the visit of the president-elect to River State, Port Harcourt, on the invitation of the governor of the state to commission some projects. We still have a lot, to talk about as regards the 2 day visit. But then this particular report is speaking as regards the president-elect pledging that his administration would put incentives and policies in place to make corruption unattractive for judges and other legal officials working in the judiciary. Yesterday, the president-elect inaugurated the Magistrate Courts Complex in Port Harcourt. And, that's where all of this conversation as regards to judiciary came forward. But do you think that, there may be something to look forward to as regards the Tinubu administration, especially, looking from a point of view that, we've always had promises being handed to us by politicians, and here we are 8 years after. It's a lot of lamentations.
Sandra, 24 years down the line, successive governments have been promising us that they will fight against corruption. The fight against corruption is a promise that we are used to. And unfortunately, corruption keeps festering. It keeps getting worse. And so far, Shivaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the president-elect, the promise to fight against corruption for me just remains a promise. Until it becomes sworn in, until he's sworn in, it becomes president, and we begin to see tangible things, or we begin to see serious commitment to fighting corruption. I'll take this statement again as one of the statements politicians just put out there to excite us unnecessarily. There's a way they just want us to get excited unnecessarily.
Yes.
Because again, they just want to make you happy. They just want to say, again, the occasion determines what they say. He's gone there to commission or to open a magistrate court complex. And of course, for sake of political correctness, it would be right for him to talk about judicial autonomy, fight against corruption, ensuring that judges are corrupt. A lot of these statements are even written for them, really. So it's not just about statement making, it's about the commitment that goes into what our leaders tell us. Because if it's about promise to fight corruption, this is not be today, Sandra. You don't see. Where we don't hear this thing. So nothing has changed. Corruption keeps festering, it keeps getting worse. Even the President Muhammadu Buhari government that we are thought was going to be zero tolerance to corruption, I can't say for real whether he was able to do anything in terms of corruption. It's widespread. For 8 years, it's been widespread. So, again, these are just statements that politicians make, to excite their listeners in a particular occasion. And I think we should just leave it at that. Fighting corruption requires commitment, not just statement making. And we have to wait to see him commit to fighting corruption, what he does, and before we begin to say, yes, really, he's ready to fight corruption.
Thank you very much, Fuad. More details on page 27 of the Guardian newspaper. Now, we also have here on the front page of the Guardian, fresh hurdles for air cargo as SACO and NACO raise charges by 100%. So, SACO, that's Skyway Aviation Handling Company, and NACO, Nigerian Aviation Handling Company, the bureaucratic bottlenecks stifling national export potential have taken another turn, with these two major ground handlers in the air transport sector raising cargo processing charges by 100%. And this spike has grounded export activities, especially at the busy Murtala Mohammed International Airport, the cargo section, in the last couple of days. So while the service providers hinged the price adjustment on economic realities, affected agents and exporters have pushed back, uh, seeking a reversal to the old
100%. And that's
100%.
crazy.
So this high cost of freight now, what do you think this would mean for the business, the SMEs in the country? Yes, the SMEs in the country, the importers, the freight forwarders, and all of that. What do you think? What implication would this have on the economy of the country?
Very simple, Sandra. Their consequences will further stifle them. Because if the cost of exporting goods that you struggle to manufacture in Nigeria, to even produce the goods in Nigeria doesn't come easy. You have to face insecurity. You have to face the problem of power generation. Most likely you generate your own by generators and running on diesel. You have to also face the issue of logistics. Very terrible. You also have to face the problem of personnel committing to your job. Some of them want to even steal the goods. Some of them are so disgruntled. So even personnel management is another challenge to manufacturing and producing in Nigeria. So after you are able to wade through all of that challenge, to now export again, you have 100% rise in cost. Basically, we want to kill local businesses. We are not encouraging. When we talk about consumption to production, when you produce, you can't consume locally alone. Now you have to export. And that's one way to also get some forex back into the country. But when we have to now stifle businesses locally, because again, 100% rise in what it takes to export your goods, again, we need to, because again, if you are talking about revenue drive, we talked about government agencies and parastatals, of course, going into crazy revenue drive by taxing more or raising taxes. And this is one of the things we are seeing now. So if you face all of those challenges as a manufacturing or as a manufacturer or somebody in the agri sector or SME, and then to now move your goods out, you have to pay 100%. Additional 100%. Again, what then do we do to local businesses? Basically, we're trying to stifle them out of existence. I support the local manufacturers who are calling for a reversal. This is not the time to think. I think this is even the time we should be thinking of giving them incentives to encourage them to do more, and then so that we can also balance our international trade. We are in desperate need of exportation so that we can earn from forex and balance what we do. But where we are raising exportation rate at over 100%. And again, it beats me. Some of these things get some of us confused.
So help us God. Because the increment is showing that general cargo or bank consignment charges per kilogram immediately rose from 63 naira to 130 naira per, and the demirate charge per kilogram went from 13 naira to 26 naira. That's interesting. All right, so that is that's the unfortunate. Well, that's the report that we have regards fresh hurdles from as NACO and SACO raises charges by 100%. More details on page 15 of the Guardian newspaper. And we also have here, reps ignore outrage. OK Buhari's 23.7 trillion naira extra budgetary spending. All right, so the conversation continues for Hart as regards.
I don't think we need to dwell too much on that. It's just unfortunate. Again, these are money that were already spent. So we are only trying to legalize, money that were not, approved, with due process. These monies were supposed to be approved by the National Assembly. It was also supposed to be just 5% of our revenue. But again, we've done all manner of things. We couldn't see it, and now the approval has been done. So I think just staying on it is a waste of time, really. I think we just have to move on. Because the money we don't spend now. Or we never spend now.
Well, looking at the payment tenure of this particular one, I mean, that's almost 40 years, and there's a lot.
40 years.
Yes, and there's a lot of conversation surrounding the fact that the president has less than a month in office. So what exactly is the motive behind leaving such a burden on the incoming administration?
Well, the burden is already there. Like this is even what we call local debt from the CBN.
Mm.
The foreign debt is about 37 trillion, right?
Yes.
So the body is already there. If you want to talk about the motive behind living this kind of body, what other motive other than the fact that there was really not a handle on how to solve our economic issues? I even want to even access the economic team of this government, the people who are in charge of the economic management of this particular government, and what would they say they've been able to achieve in the last years. I doubt if there's anything on the table to celebrate as far as the economic management of the country is concerned. But again, it is what it is. Just have to hope that the incoming government will have a better understanding of how things should be handled.
Mm. Thank you very much. Now, finally, on the front page of the Guardian newspaper, we have here, apologize, compensate for colonization, Aborigines tell King Charles III. And the riders to that, no correlation rules for Harry and Andrew. UK deploys 11,000 policemen. So, leaders of the indigenous peoples of the Commonwealth yesterday signed a letter urging King Charles III of the United Kingdom to apologize for the horrific impacts of colonization. They also, what do you?
Well, I don't know what an apology will do at this time, and then what manner of compensation the Aborigines are expecting, the indigenous people of the Commonwealth are expecting from Britain at this time. I think we need to move away from thinking that Britain has anything to really do to us again as far as colonization is concerned. Because again, when we talk about colonization, how many years ago, we should even talk about what we are doing to ourselves now. It is not even worse than what Britain did to us and our colonial masters. You know, what we do now is that we're colonizing ourselves by the things we do to ourselves. So, I don't know, well, if King Charles thinks it's okay to apologize and there are compensation plans we can give, all well and good. But I think that as individuals of the Commonwealth and all of that, I think we should be more committed to how we can raise our living standards, get out of the shackles and mentality of colonization, and then begin to give good governance to ourselves. You know, by the things we do internally. Again, I don't know. I'm not expecting anybody to apologize for what happened in terms of colonization. I'm really thinking we should look at ourselves now and determine how we want to live our life and get better with it.
So far, Buckingham Palace and the UK government have not reacted to the letter. Now, more details on page 2 of the Guardian newspaper. You're listening to Trends in the Papers on 98.3 Mainland FM, the sound of Lagos. We're looking through trending stories. Don't forget that we're live on Facebook and YouTube, so you can also join the program there as well to share your thoughts or comments on the trending stories. Let's move on to the Punch newspaper now. The major headline there, May 29 handover. Again, military warns saboteurs, Gawan councils petitioners. And the writer says that threats to new president's inauguration will be promptly dealt with, says Defense Headquarters. Keyamo knocks on Noikon for saying Tinubu shouldn't be sworn in before tribunal verdict. All right, Fuad, first, before we go into whether or not, we should wait for the petitions tribunal to begin before we start having this conversation, do you think, I don't know, that, the military is, is
doing an overkill?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, that's basically exactly what I wanted to say, that I did carrying this out of proportion. I mean, who would want to do such a thing on such an important day in the history of the country?
Well, again, I'm sure the military acts on intelligence. They have their intelligence unit where they gather information, and if this statement is being made as a result of some intelligence that they have been able to gather, because again, it's not easy to just condemn statements by our security operatives. One would expect that the military would not just make a statement. They should, or one would expect that they will make a statement based on intelligence that is available to them that we will not be privy to. You understand what I'm saying? So if this statement is being made on the intelligence that the military has, well, it's okay. to give out that kind of warning that if there are people planning to disrupt the inauguration, they are better at rethink. But I also think that we should be careful to raise unnecessary dust where none exists. That's why I said, is there an overkill? Are they overstating it? Because one would think that to a great extent, a lot of Nigerians seem to now be looking on the judiciary, which is the last lap of the election cycle, to see what is going to come out of it. I think somehow we are all agreed, we all understand now that the inauguration would have to take place. We have to protect our democracy, irrespective of how we feel about the election. So again, I'm always a bit careful, to judge statements as security operatives because I'm not part of the intelligence community. And sometimes what they are exposed to, what they have information about, we don't have it. So in our analysis, we have to be a bit careful to just say, oh, why are they overtaking this and all of that. Nigeria is a very big country. Our complexities are also very, very important for us to consider when we make statements and all of that. So I'll just say the military, yes, if it's on intelligence, it's not out of place for them to use this kind of warning. And if it's just them feeling the mood of the nation and trying to warn people, I think they should also bring it down so that we don't overeat the policy, if you understand what I'm saying. So that's that on the military warning.
All right, thank you very much. Now, moving on to the second one, which is as regards Archbishop Emeritus of the Abuja Catholic Archdiocese, John Onoyekon, who has argued that it makes no sense to swear in Tinubu before the hearing of the Presidential Election Petition Court is concluded. What are your thoughts?
Well, Bishop Onoyekon is a Nigerian, a respected Nigerian at that, a clergyman who is entitled to his own opinion. Whatever he's saying is just about his own opinion about the issue. Whether it makes sense or not to other people, to Bishop Onoyekon, or as far as this man is concerned, he would have wanted to see, just like when Mr. Bakuba said, a situation where the election petitions are concluded before swearing in. Those are personal opinions. But the reality of our constitution as it is now on election matters, there are no provisions for conclusion of election cases before swearing in. If you understand what I'm saying? So an opinion remains an opinion. But what does the law say? What is in our constitution? So we will have to follow until we have made an opinion. There's nothing we can do about it. Our Professor Kiabu, where he said, I respect Bishop Onoyekon and that it should be fair to all, that this is not the first time that the president-elect was sworn in before conclusion of election matters. It happened in the Obasanjo era, it happened in the Yar'Adua era, it happened in Jonathan and Buhari. So why is this saying it now? Well, again, you can always give your opinion when you feel comfortable to give it. And I think Professor Kiabu should not have left that statement and allow the bishop to his opinion. It's a democracy. I would not fight in a democracy. So I just think that we should leave that statement on the altar of a clergyman, a respected clergyman, giving his opinion on electoral matters. But the Constitution as it is does not make provision for election petition matters to be concluded before swearing in. Maybe after swearing in going forward, it should be an agenda that will say for election petition matters to be concluded before swearing in. Until we do that, all of these statements about election petitions concluded before swearing in remain opinion, and that's all it remains. It will remain to be going forward.
All right. Thank you very much. More details on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. Let's keep moving now. We also have here Sudan, second batch of stranded Nigerians arrives today. That's on page 7. We also have here 25-year-old dredging firm worker drowns in Lagos River. I thought there were, some certain requirements needed for this particular job. But then a member of staff of a sand dredging company, FC Energy, in the Ikorodu area of Lagos, Alex Ebo, was on Monday drowned in the Beshi River while on duty. And the report is saying that the 25-year-old man slipped from one of the company's sand dredging ships and fell into the river. And efforts by the company's divers to rescue him did not yield any result, as he was said to have died before help could reach him. I thought, there were some certain health and safety, requirements for certain jobs. So, Fuad?
Sandra, yeah, we don't really pay attention to safety protocols.
Okay.
It's just even when you ride on most of our boats, I even doubt that the safety jacket, the life jacket that
Life
they give.
jackets.
I doubt if those things are even. If a lot of times the passenger doesn't even wear it properly. I even doubt if those things actually will save anybody if anything happens. Because really, we don't. When it comes to safety protocols, we hardly pay attention to it. And this is unfortunate. I would expect that the family of the disease would have to also step in and know what happened to this person. If there was negligence on the part of the company, they can always take it up in the court and seek some level of compensation. If indeed it was found that it was negligence on the part of the employers and let his death, I think the family can always take it up.
Well, more details. The story is on page 4. Benue Indigene, I'm sure appropriate things will be done as regards that particular one. Moving on now, we have here 70% Southwest private school teachers are unqualified. And that is that the story is on page 2.
Southwest, yeah.
In the entire Southwest, 70% of the private school teachers.
Sandra, if that is happening in the Southwest.
Where are you looking at, Fuad?
I found in the north, and I know what I'm saying.
That's all. You not mention the place exactly.
No, I'm just saying. If in the Southwest, the data is showing 70% teachers are unqualified.
That's interesting, though.
Very, very interesting.
The Teachers Registration Council of Nigeria claims that 70% of private school teachers in the Southwest states are unqualified. Let's not forget the Southwest states in Nigeria are Lagos, Osun, Ogun, Ondo, Oyo, Ekiti. It's also, both say that some of these states have the highest number of universities and schools in the entire country. But then, let's see what the report says. The council's registrar, Professor Josiah Ajiboye, who noted that the culprits were not teachers but cheaters, adding that they don't only cheat the pupils and students, but the system in its entirety. This is what effects is it going to have on the education system of the country, where we have half-baked people teaching people?
Sandra, is this data for public schools or private schools inclusive?
Private schools.
Oh, for private schools. Oh, to a great extent, I think I will agree with that data, because you have a lot of schools now, created since our public schools have become what it is. Look at our public primary schools. How many parents really want to even send their children to those public primary schools? And even public secondary schools. Because of the quality that has dropped drastically. So you find that a lot of people just create all manner of private schools, quote and unquote, without any standard. And the reality is that they can't even take qualified teachers in those schools. We know what it takes to really take qualified teachers. Again, to be qualified as a teacher, I think the minimum qualification would be that you have NCE. And then maybe you have a Bachelor of Education. So what you find in most of the so-called private schools is now there's one secondary school graduate that they just pay maybe 15,000 to 20,000 naira every month. Or maybe a graduate that does not really have that background in education. Because teaching in itself requires some level of training. That's why there's a teacher's training school. That's why you have the education department, the faculty, universities, or even the schools of education for NCE holders who are supposed to be trained teachers. They are trained for now to teach people. So if really the data is about private schools, I think I will agree with that data. A lot of them don't employ people because they can't actually pay qualified teachers.
Lord have mercy. Well, the TRCN say that a large number of teachers in Nigeria have never been exposed to training and have been using outdated equipment for illustration. Some of them are not even registered with the TRCN. So that's to tell that there's a big gap. Shouldn't there be repercussions for this? Because a lot of these schools, when you look at their buildings, you just see government approved, and all of that. What is the criteria for employing teachers, and then I mean, if you take Mushin for example, there's at least,
Mm.
I'm not exaggerating, there's at least two
Mm-hmm.
schools on every street, two schools on
Mm.
every street
Private
in
schools.
private schools, yes, private schools on every street in Mushin. So looking at that, because they say they have government approval and all, what are the things that can be done? What are the measures that can be put in place to reduce this number?
No, no, it's just for government agencies and parastatals in charge to do their job. How do you approve a school, for example, and they're not interested in the teaching force of the school to ensure that teachers in those schools are actually teachers trained, on how to teach the pupils or students. But again, what some school owners do, is that again when some of these things have to be approved, what it does is to get people who are qualified to stand in, or for them to get the approvals, and then to pay them, and then of course begin to employ these squad who don't have the required qualification. But again, it's also about what has happened to our public schools. It has led to this proliferation of what I call substandard private schools, and these schools cannot take qualified teachers, so they don't employ anybody that is available who is a graduate or who has a school start to teach the pupils. And you find that the quality of education in most of these schools is below par. But what can be done? The public schools are not doing any better.
Well, more details on page 27 of the Punch newspaper. Says 70% of Southwest private school teachers are unqualified. Moving on above the masthead of the Punch, we have here government agencies, military or electricity firms, and that's coming from the Senate. The story is on page 19 of the Punch newspaper. Before we go any further, I'm sure we all remember the story where there says that blackout looms as some discos were going to be. Yes, they want to
disconnected by discos, yeah.
Because they are owing people. All right.
So people are owing discos too now.
Now, so people are owing discos.
But Sandra, before you move on with the story,
yes.
If you work in a disco and a barracks, for example, is owing,
yes,
how do you go and disconnect the light of the barracks now?
Oh, soldier people.
That's what I'm saying now. If you send this, you are a marketer, these barracks, the case that cantonment, for example, is going, go and disconnect their light. Will you not do the job?
It's not me. About that too. Because it's the child of fire that you send to fire. But
is that not your job?
No. It's look for child of fire and send to fire. But this story now is giving some sort of expose, saying that the federal government is saying that the cost of electricity consumption in Nigeria is actually among the cheapest, and also we have the most defaulted by consumers in the world. I don't know how, but since we have a lot of prepaid, but what we have now is that the chairman of the Senate Committee on Power, Senator Gabriel Suswam, says electricity distribution companies had listed military formations, educational institutions, and state governments among the defaulters of power bill. Looking at this, and also just opposing against the fact that these discos are also owing, okay, what would be your own analysis of this? Because Fuad, look at it this way. I'm asking now, like, look at it this way. You have the fact that okay, the discos are owing a lot, and then you have a lot of prepaid people where they, before you can even use power, you have to pay. But then you have these large parastatals here on one corner owing millions and millions and millions. Do you think if only we have these people paying us at when due, maybe our discos won't be in such huge debts? Or what is your analysis?
Well, yeah, the question would be, this parastatals and military formations owing, are they unprepaid? Are they unprepaid meters? Because I think prepaid meters will just solve the problem. Just install prepaid meters for them. Maybe to lure them to also accept to be on the prepaid meter billing. You can even cancel their debt or maybe reduce it by maybe some percentage so that you install prepaid meters for them. Because prepaid solves the problem. Without paying, you cannot use. You have to pay before you use. So that I think that would solve the problem really if we can ensure that these government agencies, parastatals, schools are all on prepaid meters. So without paying, they can't use that. If they bypass, then it becomes a legal connection, and that they can take up with them. But that's the solution for me, really. There's no other way out.
Well, that's the report that we have from from page 19 of the Punch newspaper. The fact that the Senate Committee on Power is bringing to light electricity distribution companies listing military formations, educational institutions, and state governments among the defaulters of Power Bill. All right. And that is okay. We have one final report from the Punch. Federal roads. Federal government says pays states 859.7 billion naira in 8 years. And that's what we have. Says that the federal government has refunded 859.7 billion naira to various state governments as reimbursement for out-of-pocket expenditures incurred in constructing federal roads over the past 8 years. So due to report that state government inflate cost of repair works carried out on the federal roads, the Minister of Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, directed states to desist from such interventions as the federal government would not offset such expenses. Remember, the banter that went
I'm not owing you.
between the River State governor and the president-elect. So looking at that and also looking at what we have here, the fact that one, state governments are they in a bid to be proactive and to do what is necessary for their states.
Fix federal roads in their states.
Federal roads in their states, they get paid. But then they've also the federal government has also observed that sometimes this state government inflates
the figures.
So putting that story against the banter that happened in River State, what would be your analysis? Yes.
Again, very simple. I think on the River State story, I said there's a need for us to restructure the country. We need to look at proper devolution of power. Because again, why should we even have federal roads? Why can't we just ensure states and even local government take care of these roads? So that we don't have this issue of we inflate or you don't inflate. For example, I think we talked about Ogun State, for example. The fact that there are too many bad roads in Ogun State. I think in one of the reports, the governor said, look, most of these roads are federal roads. But the reality is that it is the indigents, the people residents of Ogun State that are suffering. And they always want to look up to the governor to fix just some of these roads. And when he does it, the problem of reforms, the accurate figure, the actual amount and all that becomes a problem. So again, part of the need for us to step back as a country and to look at the structure we run. We need to restructure, we need to devolve power, so that we can weaken the center. The federal level is doing too many things. They are taking too many things, We need to weaken it, devolve power to the state and local government. Things like roads, for example, I think should be left in the hand of the state government and the roads. But again, we will not talk about that in isolation. We are also talking about resources to fund some of these things. And that's why, like I always say, when we talk about devolution of power, one of the things that we must put on the front burner of that discussion is resource control. Because when you devolve power to the state and local government, they will need more resources to carry their duty. So it's just about devolution of power again.
Well, there's a whole lot of figures here as regards how much has been spent, how much has been refunded, how much has been disbursed as regards federal roads and all. But then you can get the details on page 19 of the Punch newspaper. And that's it. You're listening to Trends in the Papers on 98.3 Mainland FM. And we're looking through trending stories on the front pages of our dailies. We're through with The Guardian and The Punch. Now we're moving on to Nigerian Tribune. And my name still remains Omobola Sandra. I have Fuhad Sahid joining in via the phone line as an analyst. And then you can also join the show live on Facebook and Instagram at Mainland 98.3 FM. The major headline on the front page of Nigerian Tribune: Our ordeal, returnees from Sudan recount. And the writer said that 4 aircraft conveying about 400 returnees being expected. Federal government mobilizes 2 Nigerian airlines and 1 Sudanese local airline. No Nigerian who wishes to come home will be left behind, says Humanitarian Affairs Minister. Blames third-party vendors for glitches. So the evacuation process is still ongoing, but then, according to this report, there are tales of despair, hopelessness in the renditions of the first batch of Nigerian returnees from Sudan upon their arrival at the Nnamdi Azikiwe Airport, Abuja. Yes, so, well, a lot of stories, a lot of, I mean, recounting their experiences basically, on what they went through and what their eyes saw, at in Sudan. But then, as regards the evacuation efforts, what would be your analysis of it? What would you say, or how would you rate, the federal government, or should we say maybe not the federal government, maybe just generally NEMA and NIDCO?
Well, I think we have to say to a great extent they have not done badly. Because again, it's easy to just sit back here and criticize. You are not on ground. You don't know the challenges they've had to face in trying to bring these people back home. And I think I saw a report somewhere in one of the papers yesterday about the fact that I think Nigeria somehow had to even give these people some money. And I think they give them data, they give them some amount of money just to be able to take care of themselves as they're returning back into the country, which I think is commendable. And so, on this issue, I think they've not done badly. We expect that they can do more, and they should do more. And in the need for them to do more, basically what we're saying is that they should ensure that all Nigerians are brought back home safely, whatever it takes. Again, I always talk about the figure $1.6 billion as should be enough to solve that problem. So, I think to a great extent they've done well, but they can do more and they should do more. Bring back everybody back home safely.
Well, more details on page 2 of Nigerian Tribune. We also have here APC crisis. Lukman writes Adamu and NWC apologizes for embarrassing the party leadership. And then we have right after that, confirms withdrawing suits against national chairman and secretary.
Don't apologize.
Yes, sir.
And maybe they have not carried him along. Maybe they have now.
Yeah.
You understand? Not for saying they were not carrying him along. It was just a two-man show. It was the chairman and the secretary that were running the party. But now that maybe somehow they found a way to reconcile them, he has now apologized. That so good one for the APC. They've been able to resolve that issue there.
They've resolved their issue because now you say they're carrying him along. What if they just call him and say, "Guy, do well," and then we move on?
No. Politicians have a way of resolving these issues. When the politicians say they now carry me along, I'm now along. It doesn't mean they carry along in the street. Politics have their own way of, solving some of these problems. So it's a good one for the APC that have been able to solve their problem without necessarily going to court to fight in the mud. I thought that ordinarily the party should have been able to resolve this issue. So I think it's just a party thing and they've been able to resolve it.
Well, he stressed that his decision to tender the apology and withdraw the case he filed against the party leadership followed a meeting held by zonal chairmen of the party, including himself. All right, so the story is on page 3 of Nigerian Tribune. Very quickly, just running through the other stories that we have here. We have reps want dead voters removed from INEC register, and that is on page 3. We also have I will support education until I leave planet Earth, and that's coming from Afe Babalola, and that is on page 4, with no relation to Sage Babalola. All right, we also how do we give that out? All right,
you can't say you ask her.
She's Sage. Okay, you say no. All right, that's all that we can take on. Those are the major trending stories across all of the papers this morning. Okay, so we'll take a short break now, and we will be back by 8:40 for Mainland Focus, where you, as a precious listener, get to be a part of the conversation. All right, so stay with us. Don't go anywhere. This is Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos.